President Trump undermined public trust in law enforcement by suggesting that Governor Walz was involved in the Hortman murders?
I am not familiar with that statement.
Well, that is a disappointing response, and it is also why your office and Donald Trump have zero credibility.
Right then, where do I even start with this one? Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States. And I'm watching her testimony from these hearings, and I genuinely cannot believe what I'm seeing unfold here. Look, this woman was confirmed by the skin of her teeth, 54 to 46. And from day one, the questions were there. Can she actually be independent? Can she actually hold power accountable when she's reportedly so close to the administration she's meant to be checking? And now we've got her sitting in front of lawmakers, dodging questions, deflecting accountability, while the narrative machine around her keeps churning out claims about gas prices, election fraud, accusations against governors. It's relentless. And she's meant to be the one ensuring justice is blind. So today we're going to watch some of this play out together. First time for me, right alongside you. And I need you to tell me if I'm losing my mind here. If you love watching me unravel disasters like this, please click that subscribe button.
Attorney General, would you agree that it is important for law enforcement leaders to be honest?
Of course, as well as members of Congress.
Thank you. And would you include yourself as a law enforcement leader?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. You know, President Trump has also, he has referred to himself as the chief law enforcement officer of this country. So do you believe that President Trump is honest?
He is the commander-in-chief of the United States of America, and not only is he keeping this country safe, he is keeping this world safe.
It's a simple question which you didn't answer.
He is the commander-in-chief.
Last June, Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman, her husband Mark, and their dog were brutally murdered in their home. And your USA's office in Minnesota investigated this crime and obtained a 6-count indictment of the murder suspect, stating that he had intent to kill, injure, harass, and intimidate Minnesota legislators. And I have the copy right here. I read through it. Yet a few weeks ago, President Trump suggested publicly that Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was behind these murders, posting on his Truth Social account a video raising this conspiracy theory. And it wasn't true. And you know it wasn't true, or else you would not have brought an indictment against the subject. Do you know what else Trump has said? He has said he has cut gas prices by 1,400%. False. That he won the 2020 election.
Actually, gas is down to $1.99 a gallon, thanks to
President
Trump.
That he didn't know Epstein.
Maybe $5 in California.
It's my time, Mr. Chair. That he sent water to LA during the wildfires. False. That Governor Westmore of Maryland called him the greatest president of his lifetime. False. So many tales, too many to keep up. But I want to go back to what he said about Tim Walz. Do you agree that President Trump undermined public trust in law enforcement by suggesting that Governor Walz was involved in the Hortman murders?
I am not familiar with that statement.
Well, that is a disappointing response, and it is also why your office and Donald Trump have zero credibility, because I know, and you know, it was a right-wing extremist who murdered the Hortmans, and you and the president are being dishonest with the American people. Last fall, after the horrific shooting of Charlie Kirk, President Trump was asked if there were extremists on both the left and the right. And his exact words were, "I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. The radicals on the left are the problem, and they're vicious, and they're horrible, and they're politically savvy." Do you agree with this statement? You're taking too long.
Oh, that was something else entirely. Do you believe President Trump is honest? And she pivots to commander-in-chief like that's an answer. Like that's remotely addressing what was asked. Here's what gets me. This is the same Pam Bondi who, let's not forget, accepted a $25,000 donation to her Florida Attorney General campaign from the Trump Foundation back in 2013. right around the time her office was supposedly reviewing fraud complaints against Trump University. And then, mysteriously, Florida declined to join that lawsuit. She's always maintained there was no connection. Sure. And now she's sitting there, unable to say whether the president tells the truth. She can't even engage with the Hortman murder accusation. A sitting president publicly implied a governor was behind a brutal triple homicide. And the Attorney General claims she's not familiar with that statement. You brought the indictment. Your office knows who did this. And when confronted with the fact that the president spread a baseless conspiracy theory that directly contradicts your own department's findings, the best you've got is, I'm not familiar. This isn't incompetence. This is strategic amnesia. Because acknowledging it means admitting the president lied. And apparently that's the one thing this Attorney General cannot do. The lawmaker listed off falsehood after falsehood, gas prices, election claims, water deliveries that never happened, and Bondi just sat there, running out the clock. This is your chief law enforcement officer, America, protecting the powerful from accountability.
Madam Attorney General, but you know the answer because your own department has addressed the question. In 24, the DOJ's research arm issued a report on domestic terrorism stating that the number of far-right attacks continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violence extremists. The DOJ published the report, and after the president made those comments, the DOJ took the report down. And I sent you a letter asking you a simple question. Why did the Justice Department remove the data that shows right-wing extremists have killed more innocent people than left-wing extremists?
Did you refer to immigration enforcement as domestic terrorism?
You should answer my question.
Yes.
You're on my time, but you won't. And what I am asking you to do is put the report back, restore the data. Stop scrubbing important data from your website. Stop taking down reports that you know the American people need to know about. There are violent, dangerous people out here with real threats. And the dishonesty from your agency comes from the covering up of these threats that could hurt American people and put our lives at rest. Do better. And with that, I yield back, Mr.
The lady yields back. The gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.
May I have one moment?
You may.
Her district includes Culver City, and she's not talking about any crime in her districts, nothing about helping crime in her district. She's not even...
And there it is, the whole thing laid bare. A lawmaker directly confronts the Attorney General about scrubbing data from the DOJ website. Data that showed, according to the department's own research, that far-right extremist attacks have consistently outpaced every other category of domestic terrorism. And Bondi's response? Deflect to immigration enforcement. Classic. This isn't some obscure study, by the way. This report came from the DOJ's own research arm, their findings, their data, and it got taken down shortly after Trump made comments downplaying right-wing violence, right around the time of the Charlie Kirk assassination, actually, when you'd think transparency about extremist threats would be more critical than ever. But no, can't have facts that inconvenience the narrative, can we? And that final comment from the other side, she's not talking about crime in her district. As if documenting who's actually committing acts of domestic terror is somehow irrelevant to public safety. The deflection isn't even sophisticated anymore. It's just desperate. Here's what genuinely terrifies me. The Attorney General of the United States is actively obscuring threat assessments that could save American lives. Because acknowledging reality would require admitting that the far right poses a greater domestic terrorism threat than the left. And that truth apparently can't exist in this version of the DOJ. This is why accountability matters. This is why people like that lawmaker pressing Bondi deserve recognition. Speaking of which, if you want to see someone really hold her feet to the fire, check out what happened when Jasmine Crockett got her turn at questioning. Absolutely essential viewing. Stay vigilant out there.